Okay, today we are going to talk about Zarya, because we talked about Reinhardt and Orisa already, and Zarya is the last sort of defensive tank, because the others are Divers and Roadhog, so not really thought of as traditionally being tanks. So Zarya is somewhere between Orisa and Reinhardt in role, where she is more aggressive than Orisa is, well, higher presence than Orisa is, I should say, but she still is lower presence than Reinhardt, unless she's rocking high charge, in which case she's the best hero in the entire game at that point. The trick is getting to high charge, which is easier or harder, depending on the game, for a few reasons. So anyway, we're not going to talk about any of Zarya's buttons. I'm going to assume you know what all of them do. She's a pretty straightforward hero. She's one of those heroes, I think, that's really good to climb solo, because the tank that is viewed as being the best to play solo and carry with is Roadhog. I would argue that Zarya is better at it than Roadhog is, because she has really high presence, but she also has one of the best ultimates in the entire game, which will carry even the most uncoordinated of teams through a game. Whereas Roadhog has to kill a lot of people. There's like a baseline mechanical requirement to carry as Roadhog. Zarya is not so high on the mechanics side. She's more about decision-making and game sense than Roadhog is. So, if you're looking for a tank that's really good to play solo and carry with, Zarya is the one to go with. So, the issue that most people have playing Zarya is that they're bad at generating charge, and because they're bad at generating charge, that makes every other aspect of Zarya difficult to do, because she is balanced around having high charge, basically. If you're always walking around with low charge, you're gonna feel like you're playing half of a hero, because you are. The problem is that most people, when they're playing Zarya, is they bubble either someone else or themselves thinking, oh, I'm about to take damage, that dude's about to take damage, so I'll bubble them now, and then they start taking damage and they don't actually take any, and I get all of the charge. But what tends to happen instead is they do that, and then you or the person just end up not taking any damage at all. It's a little easier if you bubble yourself, because you can walk in front of somebody else's line of sight. But if you're bubbling someone else, like, oh, he's gonna take damage, what tends to happen is they just take no damage at all, because the person that was gonna shoot at them goes, oh, hold on, I guess I'll just wait a second. Okay, now I'll start firing at them. Or they never fired at that person at all, you just predicted it wrong and they were shooting at somebody completely different, whatever. It's very easy to just end up getting no charge at all. Whereas it is better to use your bubbles reactively, or sort of predictively, but in a different way, where you basically wait until you or the other person starts taking damage, and then you use your bubble. Because it's harder to stop yourself shooting once you've already started shooting. But also just, the person will not react the frame the bubble appears and stop shooting you or the person entirely. They will shoot you at least a little bit more. So you'll always get some charge out of it. Whereas if you use them predictively, you can end up getting no charge. You always get some if you wait until the person has started taking damage. And you can take that too far, where you go, wait for somebody to be half dead, and then you use the bubble on them. That's too far in the other direction, but you will always get some charge. And then, getting charge on your weapon just makes playing Zarya a lot easier, because there's a very simple flow chart to playing Zarya, which is, are you high charge or are you low charge? If you are high charge, play aggressively. If you are low charge, play defensively until you have high charge, and then start playing aggressively again. Because if you're high charge, you become the best hero in the game. You do a fucking lot of damage, and you're still difficult to kill because you are still a tank, and your shift is still a really good ability. So then you can go forward, and then you can start bullying people around, and then you start spamming into an area and it actually just kills people instead of doing chip damage. And then you start building up your ults a lot faster, because Graviton Surge takes a very long time to build up. But if you're walking around with high charge, suddenly it doesn't actually take that long to charge anymore, because you're doing a lot of damage. And it's easier to build up charge versus some teams than it is others, because if the enemy team has a Junkrat on it, well, that's easy, because then you see the bombs coming, and you just put the bubble on yourself and you walk in the way. Oh, 40 charge, then you watch that dude walking into the bombs, and you go, bubble, and then that dude gives you 40 charge, and then bam, you're 80 charge off 2 bubbles, and then you easy money. At that point, you just kill the enemy team. Well, you kill some of the enemy team, then you build up Graviton Surge, and then you kill the enemy team. Because that's what that ultimate does, basically. So, playing Zarya is a lot about building up charge, which is not exactly surprising, probably, because that is sort of her mechanic, you know? And how you play Zarya will depend on what your team needs you to do in that particular game, because she is a supportive tank. She also is not a main tank, right? She isn't as high presence as Reinhardt, so she can't really be up in the front line, like, trying to be Reinhardt, because she's just worse at that than Reinhardt is. She's better at it than, say, like, Roadhog is, because Roadhog is not really a tank, you know? So, she's a little bit better at it than Roadhog is, but she's still not as good as, like, Reinhardt, or Winston, or D.Va. She's still not quite as high presence as they are. And what you will do is, it depends on what's happening to your team. Because you're the off tank, if your backline is getting bullied, you're the one that has to actually help them with that. Because there's no reason we're on Junkertown today, by the way, because the other heroes, I've been on a map to try and show the main feature of playing that hero. There's not really a great example for Zarya, so it's just the map it loaded. So, you know, you're not Reinhardt. Hopefully you've got a main tank with you. If you're gonna pick Zarya, try to have a main tank with you, because that's gonna make your life a lot easier. If it's someone like, if the other tank is like Orisa, maybe don't pick Zarya, maybe pick like Reinhardt in that position, because Zarya is gonna have a lot of trouble being the front line. And just like Orisa Zarya is a really weak front line. So, but hopefully you've got a front line. So you've got a Reinhardt, for argument's sake, though a D.Va or a Winston are also fine. So you've got your Reinhardt up here. He's like standing with the payload. But the backline is getting bullied. There's like a Genji floating around somewhere and he's trying to kill your backline. You're the one that's meant to go deal with that because you're the off tank. Reinhardt's over there at the front line, so you're the one that has to come back and deal with the people killing your backline. Zarya also has this, bodyguarding aspect to her where you're always supporting someone. Zarya can't really operate by herself because you will never build up enough charge if you're trying to just play by yourself. And one of your abilities just straight up doesn't do anything if you're by yourself because you don't have anyone else to bubble. So you're always supporting someone. You're either supporting your front line or you're supporting your back line. But if your back line's in trouble, you go deal with it. It's not the other tank's job to go and deal with it. You are the one that has to come back and go, alright, Genji's bullying my Mercy. I'm gonna bubble the Mercy so that Genji doesn't fucking kill her. And then I'm going to just try and drive the Genji away. And this is how Zarya does her thing, where she controls space and denies the enemy team damage. She denies them damage because she has her bubbles, which, you know, block a decent amount of damage. You're CC immune. If suddenly, like, Genji's trying to kill your Mercy, putting the bubble on her can save her from the Dragon Blade, because that'll give her long enough, hopefully, to try and get away. And so you use your bubbles, but, like, she doesn't have, like, super consistent damage reduction, right? Because then the bubbles have a long cooldown. So, you bubble the people, but then the way you actually, like, stop your team from getting killed is you actually use your damage as well, which is another reason why if you're not high charge consistently, you're just gonna be playing a hobbled hero, because low charge Zarya does, like, no damage, right? Like, terrible, awful damage. So you put your bubble on the person, you build up charge, you know, if you've got a Reinhardt or a Winston or something with you, it's easy to build up charge off of them. Here's a cool thing, even if Reinhardt's holding his shield up, if the attack is close enough to the center of the shield, you still get the charge off of it hitting the Reinhardt, even though it actually hit his shield, so Reinhardt is also good for building charge up off as well. The thing is, with having another tank, and a main tank ideally, is it makes it easier for Zarya to actually build charge, because Winston is jumping in, you bubble the Winston as he jumps in. You know, Reinhardt's getting, like, fire struck by the other team or something like that. You bubble the Reinhardt, you just bubble him because he's getting shot at behind his shield. You still build up the charge. And then when you're high charge, assuming you're high charge, because hopefully you are, you know, we'll assume we're playing well and we've got, like, 50% charge consistently at least. Genji's trying to bully the Mercy. You come back and you bully the Mercy. Fuck. Don't do that. Don't bully your own teammates. You come back and you bully the Genji away from the Mercy, and you put the bubble on the Mercy so the Genji doesn't get to kill her. That's how you actually, like, that's how you actually control space as Zarya. You have to be threatening as a hero, and then you drive people away with your damage. Because you don't have the shield aspect that Reinhardt has, where he just has this big, beefy shield people can hide behind. Your shields are nowhere near as good as his. But you do a lot more damage than Reinhardt if you're high charge and in a wider area, so you actually just push the people away from the backline. Genji's back here trying to kill him, you drive them away. Reaper's trying to kill your Mercy. You bubble the Mercy, and then suddenly Reaper has to get through that, and you're shooting the Reaper the entire time. You know, if he's trying to kill somebody in your backline, he's probably just gonna straight up pop the barrier trying to kill the person. So you're gonna get 40% charge, and that's probably enough to at least help try and drive the person away. You know, she's really good against Tracer because she's one of the most consistent heroes in the game, or she is the most consistent hero in the game at stopping Pulse Bomb from killing people. Because you get stuck, no big deal. You know, you don't have to predict it, right? Like, D.Va can stop Pulse Bomb, but she has to predict the Tracer is going to throw Pulse Bomb. Zarya doesn't have to predict it. Zarya can just see Tracer coming. Oh, Tracer threw the Pulse Bomb onto Mercy. Bubble Mercy. Mercy survives. And then you get a lot of charge off that, and then you just come up and you start bullying the Tracer. It's hard to hit Tracer, but that's okay. That's what the right-click's for. If a hero's hard to hit, you can just right-click at them, and that still does a lot of damage. And then that's sort of the thing with Zarya. You have to decide, you have to figure out what you need to do in that game, because you're always supporting somebody. You either support the front line or you support the back line. You know, usually the enemy team is always going to have at least one flanker on it. You know, even if it's only like Pharah or something, you know, you're going to have to try and help the back line most games. Sometimes, though, the enemy team is like McCree Soldier. And then you don't really have to worry about the backline at that point because you're probably not going to be getting flanked. And then at that point, you just sit up with the front line and, like, build up charge. You know, you can walk in front of the Reinhardt shield, bubble yourself, take some shots, come back behind Reinhardt, bubble Reinhardt, and then he builds up your charge as well. It's really all about building up charge because everything else comes as a consequence of that. If you're low charge, you can't actually, like, push people away from it. You can't actually, like, control space because you personally are not threatening enough to drive them away, which you have to be if you're going to control space, because just your bubbles alone don't control space. Like, you have to be threatening, and low charge Zarya is just not a threat. High charge Zarya, very high threat. And then it makes it easier to build up Graviton Surge, which is obviously the best part of Zarya, because this is the ultimate that will carry you through any game, because it doesn't matter how bad your team is, as long as you ult in the vicinity of your team, they are going to kill them, right? Unless they have Zenyatta and you don't have anything that can kill them through Transcendence, in which case, then you're going to be sad. But, doesn't tend to frequently be the case in my experience. So, this is why Zarya is, I think, probably better for carrying than Roadhog is. Roadhog's ultimate won't carry a team. Zarya's ultimate will carry a team, and she can have as much presence as Roadhog, provided you're actually decent at building charge, which is not that hard. It's just people usually think about their bubbles in the wrong way, and are really bad at building charge, which just makes it really hard to play Zarya. And that's the main component of playing Zarya. It's sort of her mechanic. It would benefit you greatly to be good at tracking, because, you know, Zarya hasn't got the strictest aim requirement in the world, but, you know, having decent tracking is kind of important for Zarya. Not as important as it is for, say, Orisa, but it is still important. You can practice tracking. I'm trying to think what to do it on. You can practice tracking by just coming into a game and you just pick a piece of scenery, and I'm bad at tracking, so I'm not gonna be great at it. You just pick a piece of scenery, and you target that, and then you, like, rotate around it, and you just sort of try and track it. And Ilios is really good for that, if you're interested in doing that, because of the lanterns on the walls in Ilios, because those are quite small pieces of the geometry that you can just focus on and try and track around. And it's easy to tell if you're hitting them because they're like black on a white background, so it's just kind of easier to do it on those. So you can do that to kind of like practice or warm up, if nothing else, for tracking. And that's sort of the only real like mechanical thing that Zarya has to her, really. The rest is about game sense and decision making, which is most of the tanks. Unsurprisingly, they're all pretty easy to play, with the exception of Roadhog, because if you can't aim and you're trying to play Roadhog, you're just going to be an objectively bad Roadhog, basically, because you won't be able to do what he does, you know. The rest of playing Zarya is mostly like efficiency stuff. Like if you have nothing better to do, like if you got nothing to be doing with your time right now, just like spam into the choke point, just pretend you're playing Junkrat, and just spam into the general area of the enemy team, because you want to be building up Graviton Surge, because that's the thing that's overpowered about Zarya, is her ultimate. Well, she does a lot of damage as well, but that's more conditional. You know, as long as you're just trying to always be doing some damage to the enemy team, you'll build up Graviton Surge, and that's the big deal. And that's it, really. Like, she's not a very difficult tank to play. Most common mistake is always just that, people use the bubbles incorrectly. She can do a damage boost off of her grenade as well. There are a few places in the game where that's helpful. I'm pretty sure you can get up into the window in Hanamura, for example, if, first checkpoint, if you, jump up onto there. I don't play that much Zarya, so I'm not sure where all of the best places to do that are, but she can hop up into some interesting locations. I don't really play any of the off tanks. I just basically play Reinhardt because he's the tank I played for like 5 seasons, and then suddenly he got bad, and I was like, well, I guess I'll learn how to play the other tanks, but, Reinhardt's just the tank for lazy people. You know, you're playing Zarya, like, you have to actually do stuff, man. Like, you have to actually do stuff. Like, you have to actually be building charge and trying to keep your charge relatively high, and you have to, like, look around and, like, oh god, backline's being flanked. Fuck, I have to actually go and deal with that. That's the thing that, people never really, also seem to understand about Zarya, which is true. This is true of all of the tanks. You are a tank. So that means your main role is to stop your team from taking damage. And all of the tanks do this. All of the tanks should prioritize blocking damage for other people. Even Roadhog, who is basically a DPS with a lot of hit points and a big model. Like, they're all meant to do damage. Zarya is like a guard dog, right? Like, you see your backline's in trouble, you come back and you attack the person that is diving your backline and you drive them away. You make life difficult for them. And the rest of the time you're just trying to do something. Zarya has a pretty high skill cap, and then it's just like, okay, she has like she's a low skill floor, but she has a kinda high skill ceiling, because there are a lot of small efficiencies you can get out of the hero to just like get a little bit more charge and like get a little bit more ult charge. And it makes the difference because Zarya, she isn't the kind of hero like Genji who can just like poke at the enemy team for a while, build up your ultimate, and then go in and kill everyone. Like, Zarya doesn't really make the one big play that like wins the round. Like, she can if she builds her ultimate, but to get to the point where you can even use your ultimate at all, you have to be making like a lot of smaller, efficient things happen in the time before that, so you actually get to be in the position to make the big Graviton Surge play. And, like, here's one example of, like, an efficiency, which is, if you are in a position where you can be, like, right next to your Graviton, and you can start, like, grenading into the whole team, because that's better than, like, lasering one person in the Graviton, is to get up in the Graviton and grenade them. The way Zarya is you can grenade, and then you can punch, and it doesn't add delay to the next punch. So you punch between every melee attack when you're point blank with the Graviton, and you just do a little bit more damage. But that little bit more damage can be the difference between, like, the Mercy dying in the Graviton, or the Mercy getting out of the Graviton and being able to use Valkyrie and, like, undo all your hard work, right? Like, sometimes it matters. Zarya is that kind of hero where, like, the plays that are, seem kind of small and insignificant can make a big deal for Zarya, because she is a hero that's about getting extra efficiencies out of someone. If you're a person that enjoys, trying to min-max, your play, and trying to get, like, even just, like, the slightest little improvement in efficiency, Zarya is the one for you. Because she's pretty low mechanically, she's all about game sense and decision making, like, almost entirely. Like, tracking is a little bit of a thing, but, like, it's not that terrible for Zarya. It's all about making these percentage-based plays that increase your efficiency, and then by increasing your efficiency by, like, 5%, you get your ultimate 5% faster, and then that can be all the difference. Like, we've all played in a game with a Zarya where we've been like, fucking hell, she has Graviton again? To get to the position where you get the enemy team to go, fuck, she has it again? You have to make all of these, like, efficient plays, and then, like, the difference between seeing, like, a low-level Zarya and a high-level Zarya is, like, fucking night and day different, because the low-level Zarya always looks pretty unsure of what they're meant to be doing, and they kind of, like, do a lot of just sort of unfocused stuff, whereas the high level at Zarya is always doing something. They're like, fuck it, they are, appropriately enough, they're like laser focused on what they're trying to do. There isn't really that much to say about Zarya, honestly, and I find that for most people, seeing the thing that sees the biggest improvement in Zarya play is always just stop using your bubbles predictively and try to use them reactively instead. And I mean, you can use them predictively. I shouldn't say that, like, in such black and white strokes, because, you know, if Genji dashes up to your Mercy with Dragon Blade drawn, yeah, he's gonna cut the Mercy. You can bubble the Mercy before she gets cut in that example. Like, she's gonna get hit, you know? So I guess I shouldn't say it's so black and white, but, I find that is the thing that usually makes it dramatically easier for people to play Zarya, because if you're just playing low charge all the time, you're gonna have a bad time, because you're just playing half of a hero. And then the other probably most common mistake Zarya players make is they use Graviton when their team is not there. Which, you know, it seems like something so obvious to say, where it's like, you know, I say use Graviton while your team is actually there, and you go, oh yeah, well, of course you need to use Graviton when your team is there, but, like, you've seen them. You've seen the Zarya that, like, half the team is dead. Like, they started the team fight thinking Zarya was gonna Graviton right at the start of the fight. She didn't. Then she decides to use it halfway through when the Genji and the Pharah are already dead. So now there's nothing to actually combo with Dragon Blade, to combo with Graviton, and she just ended up wasting it. And Graviton Surge is it's probably the worst ultimate in the game to waste, because it is definitely the one that takes the longest to charge in the entire game as well. Especially if you're having trouble building up charge for one reason or another. So, like, you can be the best Zarya in the world. Some games you are still just not gonna be able to build up charge, because it just doesn't seem to ever quite go right. Because Overwatch is that kind of game where you can be the best in the world, and sometimes you're just gonna get stomped anyway, and it's gonna feel bad. But, like, you need to actually use Graviton when your team is there. And people get greedy with Graviton. It's one of those ultimates that's very easy to get greedy with, where you hold on to it forever, waiting for this big 6-man play. But like every ultimate in the game is this way, where you want to use your ultimate as quickly as possible, because you want to start being able to work on start building up your next ultimate as quickly as possible. Because if you are playing Zarya, like there's a Zarya on both teams, if one Zarya just ults like 3 times more than the other Zarya did, that Zarya probably won, because she just ulted more times than the other Zarya. So, like, it's a very easy ultimate to get greedy with, where you hold on to it forever, waiting for the big 6-man play. You want to use it as quickly as possible, because you need to start working on the next Graviton so that you can make the next team fight basically an automatic success, right? You know, like, Earth Shatter is this kind of way where, you're happy to take 2 people, as long as those 2 people are important enough. Graviton, you dream a little bit bigger. You know, you don't really want to Graviton less than 3 people in most cases, unless you can Graviton, say, both supports, right? In which case, that's worth the Graviton. Or if, you can catch, like, the Dragon Blading Genji, and, like, the Winston, or something, that's worth it as well, because you kill Genji's Dragon Blade, which is one of the most threatening ultimates, but then you also get, you know, you get Genji's Dragon Blade, and you get the tank Winston as well, you know. You don't always need to hold, like, you usually want to try and get, like, 3 people, but if you can get, like, 2, like, really important people, then it's worth dumping it on them just to kill them. But the moral is you don't want to sit on it forever, right? Because it's one of those ultimates that's very easy to do that. It is obviously the ult that benefits the most in the game from coordination with your team. Zarya in general does, because if you've got a Winston on your team, it is helpful to coordinate with the Winston, where you're like, Winston, tell me when you're going in, and I'll bubble you, and then Winston tells you I'm going to jump in now, and then you bubble the Winston as he jumps in. But, so, like, it's not the end of the world, you know, we haven't got much to describe here in, gameplay terms. So it helps to be able to communicate just like that, but, Graviton Surge is obviously an ultimate that benefits from, coordination. You don't necessarily need to coordinate super deeply. Like, you as Zarya can still get away with, like, not talking to anyone, as long as you just, try to combo your ultimate with somebody else. So, you know, when you've got Graviton, or you're close to having Graviton, this is the key as well, you just start spamming the button. You know, my ultimate is charging. If you're full, like, spam it until you get some kind of confirmation back that somebody else has their ultimate. Or if you're close to having it, if you're at, like, 75%, then start spamming it, because then Hanzo might have his ultimate, but if you spam that, like, you have, or close to having your ultimate, he might save his Dragon Strike to use with your ultimate, because that's obviously one of the best ult combos in the game. You know, Tracer, she might have Pulse Bomb. She's gonna be looking to use Pulse Bomb as quickly as possible. But if you spam that, like, you're at, like, 75%, Tracer might think, oh, I should save it then, because I won't build up another Pulse Bomb before she has Graviton, and that's, like, the strongest ult combo in the game, because it kills people through Transcendence as well. Or Coalescence as well. You know, a lot more things kill people through Coalescence than Transcendence, but, you know, worth pointing out anyway. You don't need to, like, super detailed to communicate it. Like, you don't need to be like, and I'm gonna Graviton in 3, 2, 1. Like, you can take it too far that way as well. Just like, you know, push tab. Do any of my team have ults? Okay, Genji's got his ult, you know. If I don't see anybody, start spamming it. Who's close to having their ultimates. Because Graviton obviously benefits a lot from comboing your ultimate with other people. You don't always need to. Sometimes just your team is enough. Like, if your team has a Junkrat on it, for example, or a Pharah, you know, like, Pharah comboing Barrage with Graviton is pretty sick, but you don't really need to combo Barrage with it. Just like Pharah's AoE damage, or Junkrat's AoE damage, is enough, in most cases, to still kill people through Graviton. Like, you got a Reinhardt, you don't necessarily need somebody else to have their ultimate ready, because Reinhardt just swinging into the Graviton does a lot of damage to everybody, and, you know, you've still got the rest of the team going in there, and, you know, maybe you can get up and start doing some of this in there, you know, that kind of thing. Overall, though, Zarya is a really easy, tank to play. She's, again, she's like Orisa, I would say, if you, don't play any tanks and you want to just pick up, like, a relatively easy one to start with, Zarya would be one of the best ones, like Orisa. She's pretty, she's light mechanically. It's mostly game sense and decision making, but, again, Zarya is pretty simple to play. It's just people have, like, the wrong view of Zarya, where, you know, they see that she does the best damage in the game, and then they start thinking that they're a DPS, which is the same issue that a Reinhardt player can have, where they're like, I want to charge in and do damage. I understand, believe me. But, Zarya is one of those heroes that people, I find, just play wrong, where they think they're a DPS, and they don't focus on helping their backline, even though that's their job. Like, you're meant to help your backline as Zarya because you're the off-tank. Spoiler warning, if you're the off-tank, you are probably meant to be the one that is helping the backline if they get dove on, because your main tank is being the main tank at the front line. You can't expect the Reinhardt to come back and deal with the Genji trying to kill your Mercy, because you're meant to do that, Zarya. You're the one that's meant to deal with that. People just play it wrong, I find. But, like with every tank in the game, just remember, you are a tank, you're not a DPS, you doing damage comes second to you protecting your team. That's the most important job for you. Even as someone like Zarya, who does a lot of damage, you're still meant to be protecting your team above all else. And then it's just like, biggest thing, just try to use your bubbles reactively rather than predictively, so you always get some charge. As long as you always get some charge, that makes it a lot easier to play Zarya, because everything else ties into having high charge. You need high charge to have the damage to actually drive people away. You need high charge to actually be able to build up Graviton in a reasonable period of time. And then just remember, you go help the backline. Don't expect Reinhardt to do it, you're the one that's gotta go do it. You see somebody, you're on fucking Volskaya, and you're standing up in the choke point or something, you see somebody contesting the point, you're the one that's meant to go and deal with that, as Zarya. You're not meant to sit there with the front line and be like, yo, Reinhardt, go deal with it. And that seems like such a ridiculous thing to say to someone, right? Where you're like, well, yeah, obviously Reinhardt's not meant to do it. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised with people. I've been playing Reinhardt before, and then the Zarya has gotten upset with me and been like, why didn't you go back to the point? I was like, 'cause I'm holding the choke point. Because that's my job, Zarya. What's your job, Zarya? It's to go and fucking kill the guy that's flanking the team, isn't it? 'Cause you're the fucking pitbull on the team. I'm the one that's meant to stand in the doorway and look menacing. You'd be surprised how stupid some people are. So, bubbles reactively. Remember that you're protecting your team. Try to use Graviton with your team around. Don't commit Graviton to a fight that you have already lost or a fight that you have already won. Because if you've already won, well, obviously you didn't need to use Graviton to kill, like, the last 2 people on the enemy team. And if you've already lost, it's not an ultimate that'll swing a team fight back around that you've already lost, because it requires other members of your team to actually work. Sometimes Genji's Dragon Blade can swing around a lost team fight because it's very consistent at killing people. Zarya needs more than just Zarya there to kill people, so don't commit it to a fight you've already won, don't commit it to a fight that you've already lost, because it is an ultimate that takes an extremely long time to charge, so you really don't want to waste it. But at the same time, you do want to use it at the first actually good opportunity you see, so that you can start building the next Graviton. Because if you can Graviton like 3 more times than the enemy team does, you probably won the game because you used your extremely high impact ultimate more times than the enemy team. So, you probably won the game. Overwatch is often that simple, where if you have a really good ultimate, if you can just use it more times than the enemy team, you probably won the game. Right? Like, even just an ultimate like Tracer's, which is relatively low impact, but still a very good ultimate, because it's just a guaranteed pick, basically. If you use that just like 5 more times, or like, not even like, just like 3 more times than the enemy Tracer over the entire course of a game, you probably won that game. Like, Overwatch is very simple in that regard sometimes, so, that's basically how you play Zarya. She's very simple, just, if you're learning how to play Zarya, just figure out how to build up high charge consistently above all else, because that is mandatory for being able to play Zarya, basically. If you can't consistently build charge, you need to figure out how to consistently build charge, because that is the most important thing. Everything else comes as the trickle-down effect from that. And just remember, you're a tank. You're not a DPS. You have to go help your backline. So, thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer, and I hope you found the video helpful.